Always gotta bring up the comments on the phone. Takes a century. Here we are. Alright, first off, I'll just congratulate you if you're up at this point. Because really, this just got uploaded like an hour ago. I've seen here, let me show you. Where is it? Oh, what's up, Mario Bros? I saw this top 10 Valve fails. And here, if I can, I will show that they actually said they were going to do this. Here, hold on. Here we go. I saw this, and when I saw this, I knew I had to react to it. I love the little Smash Bros. Out in the end. So yes, this is why we're here. To react to top 10 worst Nintendo fails featuring GreenScorpion. And once again, if y'all are up, I congratulate you. Because really, I was almost about to not make this video. Because, well, I need sleep. But you know what? Sleep can wait if I can get a video out for you guys. So, do people still care about Mario? Yeah, maybe. But here we go. I'm gonna try my best not to be too loud. So, here we go. Yeah, their outro, sorry, not outro, intro's pretty cool actually. Really cool, what am I saying? Sorry. There we go, I got the comments back up. Sorry about that, y'all. And I'm reacting to this live because really, I'm just so tired right now. So I don't know if I'm gonna, if I would have this out until tomorrow, until like tomorrow.
And boy, what a ride it's been. I know there's a lot of other companies I haven't even touched, but here's the thing. A lot of them surprisingly don't have enough fails to constitute a top 10 list.
Really?
And others I've already tackled in other videos. Now, if a particularly abysmal fail from any company comes up moving forward, I'll try and figure out how to address it. But until then, this will be the last video to take on a specific company.
Well, alright then. I was ready for you to...
Are we offline?
Make a big fuss about it because it's your video.
We're
My video stopped for a
unnecessarily
second
padding
there.
out
I thought we
the intro. Do
were
you want in or
offline.
not?
Yeah, I'm in. Please don't kick me out. It goes without saying that Nintendo is one of, if not the biggest name in the industry.
Yeah.
Many of the major gaming icons that we know and love today are all thanks to Nintendo.
Pikachu,
And a
Eevee.
few infamous names as well.
But of course, the bigger the name, the harder the falls. And Nintendo's
True.
had more than its share of boo-boos.
Not really stem from malicious intent, but really just gross negligence and a lack of foresight. Which I suppose is to be expected when you have to keep track of a company as big as this one.
I've gotten comments by the dozens requesting I go through some of their blunders, and it's time to rip the band-aid off and cut this giant down to size.
Alright.
With a little help from me!
Begrudgingly.
Yeah, there were some old Mario games that were really good. So fails, wow, look,
In
I
the
bet you
80s,
ate
the whole
Waluigi on
video
the
game
Switch.
industry in North America died due to a glut of terrible software produced by unauthorized publishers slash developers, flooding the market and effectively turning many customers and retailers off of gaming. Anyone
Really?
can make a game, no questions asked, and sell it to anyone. How could Nintendo succeed in a dead industry, let alone revitalize it and restore people's trust in it? Well, Nintendo's brilliant idea was this.
Don't let that little sticker fool you. We owe everything to it. Nintendo established a third-party licensing program that restricted how many games a publisher could release in a year. This meant that developers had to put their best foot forward or not at all. It went as far as NES cartridges
really?
having to be made through Nintendo itself. Sure, some tried to circumvent it, but that quickly proved too difficult. Nintendo made it far more profitable to make games with long-term goals rather than to make a quick buck. Though
Yeah,
that
I'll be
didn't
honest, y'all,
stop
if I
a
don't
lot
talk
of
a lot,
bad
that's
games
because a
from
bunch
slipping
of people
through
are
the
sleeping
cracks.
around me right now.
Yeah, every generation has that shovelware target. If you happen to be the most popular gaming platform, everyone's gonna try and make a quick buck off your popularity and highly protect you if you happen to be a pre-licensed property. And boy, howdy, did we get a smorgasbord of crap games for the NES. Yeah,
Whoa.
game development was still new, but it seemed so many people were able to coast on the popularity of the NES and other licensed properties.
Jeez.
And let's count
Yeah,
our
some of these
blessings. We
games-
never had anything like Custer's Revenge, so Nintendo's strategy worked, just not as well as everyone hoped.
Unfortunately, the sticker eventually came into controversy. The term seal of quality implies that the game is good, and Nintendo came under some heat from salty nerds claiming false advertisement. This is why you rented before you bought in the 90s, kids. Anyway, Nintendo quietly changed the seal to read Official Nintendo Licensed Product. So
there
did
we
that
go.
fix things?
Nope. No.
Fast forward a few years and
No.
oh man, there is a serious lack of quality control for the Wii. You know that limitation of how many games you can publish in a year on Nintendo consoles?
What?
Well, that doesn't really do much when you only need one game to make bank.
Have you ever heard of Sturgeon's Law?
Nope.
It states that anything and everything can be considered art. But 90% of that art is utter crap. As much as I love the Wii, it definitely started pushing the boundaries of that adage.
I mean, some of these games don't look that bad.
Third-party Wii game amongst the garbage was a chore, and this glut of kiddie shovelware really prevented a lot of publishers from taking the console as seriously as Nintendo themselves
Lots of
did.
racing
I still
games.
remember the
Well,
GT
yeah,
forum
Mario
days
Kart.
where Wii is just a fad.
And don't even get us started on the handhelds. I can't tell you how many bad games based on movies or TV shows were released for the Game Boy Advance
Fear
and
Factor
DS.
made that list,
The
you
worst
kidding
part
me?
is that it's still going on today. Seriously, the Nintendo eShop is filled with terrible ports of mobile games. But as much as we
Leon's a
complain
pretty
about this,
cool
to
character.
Nintendo's
You can
credit, they
figure out
were
the
able to
storyline and
reestablish some sort of standard. And again, this policy literally saved the industry. But there are
Yeah.
days when we wish they were just a wee bit stricter.
9. Oh, I like that
Now,
little,
we all
like,
know that Nintendo is all about innovation.
thing.
And sometimes we get some really amazing stuff. And other
Like, it's not
times,
app-
we get some really weird
What the
Sometimes
hell?
both.
Now, there are so many embarrassing peripherals Nintendo has put out over the years that we could easily make a list dedicated to them alone. In fact,
Wait a second, where are you going with this?
Don't do
Nintendo
it.
peripherals in 10 words or less.
No, stop it.
Ignore that.
only one game used this.
Hyped, then vanished. Good, could easily abuse microtransactions.
Only one game used this.
Fire, fire, fire!
Overhyped Nintendo Zapper made immortal by Smash Brothers.
Fire,
Huh.
fire, fire!
Cute but unnecessary gimmick made immortal by Smash Brothers.
It's
Nice.
so bad. Well, at least the marketing's honest.
It's Digimon Tamers, except you never have a full Digimon.
You just spent
Jeez.
$90 on a weight scale. Congrats.
It's funny that that's 7 out of 10 because I got one of those.
And you thought the Genesis attachments were bad.
Pay us money for plastic!
Pay us money for cardboard!
So glad Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles is getting a remake.
Used by a lot of games. No one used it.
Only
Aw.
one game used this.
Selfie generation a decade before it happened, with bad filters.
You only own this because you bought Link's crossbow training.
At least it made Pokemon fans happy for a bit.
You want to play DK64 and Majora's Mask?
Useful at first, died off later.
Incredibly niche. Though, personally, I love this damn thing.
You would.
You would. You know what? I like it. I agree with
Nintendo
everything that
is a
they're
company
saying,
that
but
has had
then I
very
disagree. I agree on
strained
some of it, but
relationships
some
with
of it
third
I
parties
disagree
ever
with.
since the beginning. Even though the seal of quality policy helped revitalize the gaming industry, many third-party developers weren't happy with it. For some of them, only being able to release 5 games a year, as well as being forced to develop games exclusively for Nintendo, felt very limiting, both for their
Yeah,
profit
I
margins
guess it
and,
would
in some
be
cases, their
limiting.
creativity. But Nintendo controlled over 90% of the market, so they really didn't have a choice.
But once Sega came along, oh lord, it got absolutely cutthroat. Due to Sega's aggressive marketing, third parties could now develop what they wanted without having Daddy Nintendo looming over them. Sure, the number of games they could develop were limited, but they weren't forced under any exclusivity contracts. It didn't help that Nintendo seemed to enjoy actively antagonizing other companies. Sony,
Really?
and even got investigated for antitrust violations.
Jeez.
But possibly the saddest example of this comes from Square.
See,
I
Square
was
was
about
with
to say Final
Nintendo
Fantasy,
from the beginning,
jeez.
with Final
Well,
Fantasy
Square is
being made
probably
for the
Final
NES.
Fantasy.
Since then, they made a lot
Oh
of
my
great
gosh.
games for the Super Nintendo, such as Final Fantasy VI,
Is this my
Chrono
quality
Trigger,
on my?
and Super
Is this
Mario
my
RPG.
quality going bad,
They
or is this the
obviously
actual
had a close
ad
relationship
quality
with
going
Nintendo,
bad?
but then they had the idea for Final Fantasy VII. They realized that they literally could not make the game they wanted on a Nintendo console. Even if the fabled N64 DD was a success, Final Fantasy VII would have spanned 30 discs. Think of that the next time you whine about having to change discs. So they told Nintendo that they were going to develop Final Fantasy VII for Sony. And Nintendo's response was a very politically correct,
Now get out of here and never come back!
Jeez.
Wow! Never thought Nintendo of all people would act like the jealous ex-girlfriend.
That just adds 15 layers of complexity to Cloud being in Smash.
I still called that years ago!
And if you think it ends there, well, it got worse. Because the N64 went with cartridges instead of the cheaper and roomier discs, as well as the Sony PlayStation being the new kid on the block, ready and willing to have new games developed for it without super strict guidelines, third parties gleefully snubbed Nintendo. And the effects of this decision continued all throughout the GameCube's life cycle. Sure, they had some third-party support during all this, including from Sega, weirdly enough. But given the competition from the newly developed Xbox, and how much the PlayStation 2 was dominating the market, sometimes it felt like Capcom supported Nintendo out of pity.
Then the Wii came along. At the
And
start,
that
nearly every
changed it
third party
all.
took it as a joke, only pushing out games with the faintest fart of an effort. Even after the Wii's popularity exploded, that still didn't stop third parties from only using Nintendo to make a quick buck, and only seemed to take the Xbox 360, PC, and PlayStation 3 seriously. Things didn't improve at all with the Wii U, as the confusing interface and poor marketing caused initially strong third-party support to slowly fizzle out. Hi, Ubisoft.
Hello.
Nowadays, things seem to have gotten a lot better. The Nintendo Switch
Guinea
has been
Circle
nicknamed the portable
8727.
port machine, as many companies can't seem to resist porting over their best games to the console. Hello, Undertale.
Hey,
Weirdly,
Undertale.
Bethesda,
Undertale's a
of all
good
companies,
game.
seems to be very intent on
Ooh, there's
supporting the
Doom.
Switch.
Doom
Seriously,
Eternal's
we
going on in
got
a few
Doom
days. I think I'm gonna put
2016
it on
on a
channel.
Nintendo console, the family-friendly company. And on that note, can we be reminded
That
that
is
Bayonetta
true.
2 would not
It is
exist
sort
if
of
it
like,
weren't for
the
Nintendo bringing her
Marvel DC
aboard the
universe.
Wii U all those years ago?
Issue.
And given that Final Fantasy VII is being released
I
on the
love
Switch,
Undertale too. I haven't even
guess
looked
we
at
can call
Delta
that
Tale.
bygone bygone.
I haven't looked at a single
That's how
video.
that
I'm
word
thinking
works,
about
right?
playing on this channel
Nintendo's
soon.
relationship with third parties has been unbelievably
We're still on
rocky
number 8.
since
That
day
just
one.
hit
From
me.
smothering them with overly strict guidelines until they leave, then being unable to be
How much
taken
you wanna bet
seriously as a
Wrath,
platform, to finally not being able to get enough of
2875
Nintendo. This whole
plays
situation
this,
might as well
or
be a
what reacts
weird
this.
roundabout allegory about a controlling father who alienated his kids, then embarrassed himself in trying to get them back, but eventually ending on a happy note.
You know, I kind of want to see that now.
Nintendo is known for being a little behind
Wrath
the rest of the world when it comes
2501,
to
that's
trends
his
and
name.
avenues to explore. While this has led to
Sorry,
them
Al.
innovating in a
Didn't
lot
know
of
me to
areas,
mess it up.
in others they tend to make mistakes that people corrected years ago. And nowhere is this more evident than how they view mobile gaming.
Oddly
Really?
enough, fans have been begging for mobile Nintendo titles for a long time. But Iwata-sama, rest in peace, was very adamant about not having Nintendo games be on mobile devices, stating if we did this, Nintendo would cease to be Nintendo. Dramatic wording aside, he did admit that Nintendo would make some great short-term games if they
But-
entered the mobile scene. He was right.
I don't think anyone was ready for how
But what
big
about
Pokemon
Mario
was gonna
Kart
be. Not
on
even
the
Nintendo.
mobile
It's
phone?
Niantic, but Nintendo basically funded this game with box tops and a prayer, and it shows. Gameplay depth of an Austrian royal's gene pool, frequent
Oh,
crashes,
yeah, Pokemon
a near
Go.
non-existent tutorial, and the worst sin for a Pokemon game? Absolute bare bones interactions with other players. No trading, no one-on-one battling, nothing. And of course, what happened at Pokemon Go Fest.
Seriously, bless the speakers for trying, but that was not their day.
Yeah, it was
It wouldn't
not.
be until much later when Nintendo started taking the steps to make Pokemon Go the mobile monster it is today. And this would eventually lead them to develop other mobile games like Super Mario Run, Animal Crossing
yeah,
Pocket
Mario
Camp,
Run.
Dr. Mario World, and Fire
Dr.
Emblem
Mario
Heroes.
World I actually
And
played for a little
something
bit.
tells
It's a
me
good
that
game.
what came next is what Iwata-sama was worried about.
Microtransactions are standard in mobile games, and it seems that not even Nintendo is immune to the insatiable sense of greed it creates. Some examples of this are the Fire Emblem Heroes Pass and Fire Emblem Heroes, which offers some quality of life features for a monthly fee. Pokemon Go sells cosmetics and boosts that you probably need for your Pokemon journey. And then there's Dr.
What's it
Mario
cost?
World, basically becoming Candy Crush Saga, where you spend real money on in-game currency to play a certain level.
But the worst of this came with Mario Kart Tour.
What?
Admittedly, the idea of playing a Mario Kart game on your phone was pretty enticing, and it received a significant amount of downloads
2020.
on launch. Unfortunately, the gameplay was awkward no matter what device you played it on. The amount of content initially available was sparse, and that leads into the microtransactions, which were out of control.
I
bad.
had money once. It was an overrated experience.
Now, we understand that the mobile market and microtransactions go together like macaroni and cheese at this point, but that does not change the fact that there's a proper way to do it.
Ooh, perfect. I hate
Mobile gaming.
That's all of us
When
at this
Nintendo
point.
strikes gold with a console,
Oh, okay.
they really hit it home.
Out of the park, yeah.
NES, the SNES, the blessed Switch.
Yeah,
Even
the
though
Switch
the
is a good one.
N64 had difficulty competing with Sony's PlayStation, we still got some of the greatest video games ever
This was a
made
good- that was a
on
good
the thing,
one.
which
This
defined
one,
many a
Banjo was a
childhood.
good one.
The Wii as well. Yeah, a lot of the games are hit or miss, but the console itself delivered where it needed to.
I don't
Just
know
look
what
at
this
those
one is.
sales numbers.
Naturally, for all the smooth, satisfying turns on
There were
Nintendo's
some
never-ending
bad ones.
console journey, there are more than a few bumps. And no
the heck is
lie,
that?
Nintendo's bumps are pretty embarrassing. Case in point, the Virtual Boy.
Back
Oh,
when virtual
no.
reality and 3D was still a newish thing, Nintendo decided to give it a go with their own attempt at VR. Binoculars. Aside from
Oh, no.
aesthetics, the console's main issue was that it barely even worked. It couldn't get the 3D effect right, and it was a major health hazard to anyone who even tried to use it. Headaches, nausea, neck issues. This thing was
Jeez.
literally both an eyesore and a pain in the neck.
Fortunately, Nintendo isn't above admitting that this thing was a train wreck.
We don't joke about Virtual Boy. It's listening.
Unfortunately, they're
But no,
also
it's
not above
not.
poor marketing
Be
when it comes
quiet.
to other consoles. For a tragic fate hath befell the N64 Double D. It promised expanded
Double
game
D, I saw
storage,
that.
online gaming, and even a creative outlet for artists and animators. That sounds too good to be true, right? Well,
Yep.
that's what Nintendo seemed to think, because only a small amount of these things were actually sold, and an even smaller amount of discs were made before they just got pushed aside and canceled altogether. They didn't seem to have any faith in this thing.
That seems to be Nintendo's main problem with these console failures. Either the
Ugh,
console
fifth
is
place is
actually
always,
beyond
like, not the
saving,
best
or
place to
they just
go.
gave up halfway through trying
Well,
to
fifth
promote
place
it.
isn't bad,
And it didn't stop there.
considering
Looking back,
how many
the
people
Wii
are
U
playing.
isn't actually a bad console.
Perspective, I suppose.
Splatoon.
But Nintendo did it dirty in the marketing department. Its console exclusive titles, if it had any, were slim to none. Third-party support was practically null and void, and then there was that abysmal launch. We'll get to that later. In the end, it only sold like 13% of what the original Wii sold and finally discontinued in
Jeez.
2017.
The gamepad's
But at least
battery
the
power
Nintendo Switch is
also
doing
kinda
great,
sucked.
right?
Literally.
Right?
But hey, give it credit,
Number
it had more to
3.
offer than the Wii Mini.
What?
The what?
What was wrong with that?
No backwards compatibility, no networking. You know what? I'll let Timmy finish my thought.
You know what's really microscopic? How much I care.
There it is. I didn't know
An
that thing
interesting fact
existed.
about Sony and Microsoft is that both have been observed muttering jealous remarks about the staying power of Nintendo's franchises. All things considered, they have a point. Most of Nintendo's biggest franchises like Mario, Zelda, and Pokemon have been around for literal decades and are still going strong today. Fewer
True.
most.
So, what happens when you ask Nintendo to bring back some of their more neglected franchises?
Come on, Reggie, give us Mother 3! How about this instead?
Oh no, don't do it.
I know that skit is pure hyperbole, but does
It's
Nintendo
true.
hate their niche franchises or something? Because if so, I have a few questions for Sakurai.
Yeah, it's almost like Nintendo wants us to forget about some of their old franchises to a seemingly hostile extent. You want a new Rhythm Heaven? How about Golden Sun? Advance Wars? Chibi Robo? Custom Robo? Well, guess what? It ain't happening, despite a vast amount of gamers hammering at Nintendo to get on that cash cow.
Seriously, Nintendo, you have a base of rabid fans that are begging to give you their money. Why don't you want our money?
Shut up and take my money.
Exactly.
Pretty sure this meme conjured itself into existence for you. Why don't you take the hit?
It's only a game. Why you have to be mad?
Let's go back a
Dude,
minute.
why don't you take the hit?
It's only a game. Why you have to be
We are allowed to get mad if we
And
want
when
to get
Nintendo
mad.
does release a game in these franchises, they often do so in a way that it feels like it belongs on the malicious compliance subreddit. Paper Mario Color Splash was a commercial failure, Metroid Federation Force was met with groans and facepalms, and how many Star Fox remakes do we really need? Seriously, all you have to do is use the same gameplay formula from 64, give it a few new improvements and features, and slap it onto a new narrative. That is practically what you do with all of your other franchises, and it works.
And the reason we give Nintendo crap for this is that they themselves have proven that reviving a
Jeez.
dying franchise can lead to some serious success. Donkey Kong Country Returns brought the Big 8 back into the spotlight.
True.
And there's Fire Emblem Awakening, which literally rekindled the Fire Emblem franchise into a global phenomenon. And don't even get
True.
me started on the mimetic zeitgeist
I don't know about
known
this
as
one,
Kid
'cause I
Icarus
don't play out of
Uprising.
this one.
I'm willing to bet that if they announce a new game in the Mother or F-Zero franchise,
Oh, yeah,
the fan base will have
Motherland.
no shortage of minds blown.
Thankfully,
People
with
go
Super Smash Bros.
insane. I've
Ultimate
heard about
celebrating the
that.
history of gaming,
Never really
and the
played
Nintendo
it,
Switch
but I
proving to be a
know people
revitalizing
love it.
platform for some long-forgotten games, perhaps this issue will be addressed soon enough. Here's hoping Metroid Prime 4 is good.
Hello, oh my gosh, I can never say
Here
your
we go
guys'
with
names, I'm
this
sorry.
song and dance
Marco,
again. E3, the most renowned gaming showcase in history. And the
Cake,
birthplace of
99
many
Spark
cringy,
Cake, I'm so sorry,
meme-worthy
I know I
flops.
messed that middle one
And
up.
Nintendo has also had its share of triumphs and stinkers in this legendary land, sometimes within the same conference.
E3 2010 was probably Nintendo's best E3 conference. Epic Mickey, GoldenEye, Donkey Kong, and the 3DS with Ocarina of
3DS?
Time, Kingdom Hearts, and Kid Icarus. Though, it didn't start out too great. Skyward Sword
I'm sorry, y'all.
unfortunately had some interference, and it was a painful 10
Oh, I know.
minutes. Luckily, journalists got to demo it themselves and assured everyone that it not only works, but works well. But for a while, we were really scared.
E3 2015 was another case of good and terrible. While it
But
featured
why?
a lot of great 3DS games and some hilarious puppetry, this direct was considered the nail in the coffin for the Wii U. The Wii U was starved for big games for a long time, and what we got to look forward to was Mario Tennis Ultra Smash and Star Fox Zero.
I mean, that's alright.
Then there was
Ooh,
E3 2011, where the Wii U's initial trailer was confusing to say the least. No one
How
knew
so?
what to think of it, especially because it didn't explain the gamepad's capabilities and limitations all that well, which I'm pretty sure was the intended big selling point for the thing.
But then there's the big one. Quite possibly one of the worst E3 press conferences of all time.
No, what was it?
E3 2008. During this time, the Wii was doing well. Very well. But with the slow decline of E3 quality since 2006, a lot of very loyal audiences had felt like they were being ignored in favor of the new casual market. With a sparse showing from the third parties and only Twilight Princess and Mario Galaxy under their belt, the more optimistic fans thought that Nintendo was saving their best stuff for E3. Beforehand, Reggie said that there were going to be 3 game announcements that hardcore gamers would be very interested in. What
And
we
what were
expected
they?
was maybe F-Zero, Star Fox, an Okami sequel, or heck, everyone was talking about Kid Icarus. So what were the 3 hardcore games they were talking about?
what was it?
Star Wars The Clone Wars, Rayman Raven Rabbids TV Party, and Call of Duty World at War.
Okay,
oh,
Call of
yeah,
Duty's
because
okay, but
these totally
yeah.
have the same audience.
Oh, it gets worse. I remember when the Wii Fit board came out, people said it would work great with a snowboarding game. Well,
But-
they gave us one at the beginning of this conference, but by this point, interest in such a concept had evaporated. You should have led with that once you released the thing. Then there was the Wii Motion Plus, which was announced to a deafening silence. Why? Well, because this is them charging you an extra $20 so they could deliver on the one-to-one motion control they promised back in 2006. Sure, we got a fun Wii Sports
Jeez.
Resort demo with the jet skis, but before that we spent so much time on throwing a frisbee to a dog. Safe to say, we felt a little patronized.
You gotta admit, is that the most adorable game you've ever seen?
And there wasn't much else at the conference that people really cared
like
about.
that.
An underwhelming Animal Crossing sequel, a Guitar
Well,
Hero game for the DS, and over 20 minutes of bragging about how much money and success they had, and peleing it up with their life stories. It was amazingly boring. Nearly an
Yeah, I
hour
can
of
understand it's
conferencing and
boring.
only 4 new games announced, few of which people were actually interested in. And then... wait, lights, smoke rising, and build-up. Could this be Kid Icarus?
It's good to be Call of Duty.
Wii music.
Nintendo
Even
fans
I
saw
felt
their
that pain.
awkward, out-of-touch parents fail to drum properly and butcher the Super Mario Brothers theme, it really began to sink in that dark days were ahead. It was a sad time to be a Nintendo fan, as many truly felt like Nintendo had sold out to the soccer moms and abandoned the ones who got them where they are today. Nintendo lost a lot of their fan base's goodwill with this, and their reputation wouldn't really recover until the end of their kinda mediocre 2009 conference. Yeah, it eventually turned out to be a bad game, but looking back, pretty much everyone forgave Nintendo once that trailer for Other M dropped.
1 on 3. Who the heck?
Boy, guess
What the heck was that face he made? I don't know. I must have missed it. Is it this face? I mean, he's got a good stash. A good beard. I don't know if I could be mad at him. You're decent. You don't get the beard, but you're decent.
How about the foggiest?
Even though time waits for no one, Nintendo's got a tendency to fall behind when it comes to online services. Right off the bat,
Jeez.
online netcoding with Nintendo is a nightmare! The only games with decent online gameplay are Mario Kart and Pokemon. Sorta.
Yeah, I actually hate the fact that you have to buy a separate piece of hardware just to play Smash Ultimate properly online. And even then, the sheer amount of frame delays makes Marvel vs. Capcom 3's online look good.
And then there's
Jeez.
Splatoon.
Oh,
Not only is
no.
there no TeamSpeak making communicating with
Yo,
your squad
Fall.
impossible,
You
but
can-
it also had a punishment system set up for players who left matches early. Not a bad idea in theory, but the online netcode was so bad that disconnections were common.
There
and
it
anyone
is.
who had an accidental disconnect got hit with the ban button almost instantly.
And what's that? You want to play with your friends? No problem. All you need to do is enter your inconveniently long friend code and send them to your buddies elsewhere. I mean, it's not like other platforms like Steam have a friend request button that saves you all that trouble. Oh, wait!
And I want to briefly touch upon the DLC real quick because Nintendo has an equal amount of awesome and terrible DLC. Getting to play them is a different matter. We will say this, however. They have grown a lot in terms of online shopping, starting from the Wii Shop with WiiWare. WiiWare. Yeah, that. You could download games straight to your console without having
yeah,
to
I
step
could
a
react
foot
to
out the
series.
door.
I
And
saw
would only
that,
continue
sorry.
to grow until we reached our most
I meant to
recent
talk about that,
innovation,
but I
the Switch
totally
Online
forgot.
Shop and
I'm sorry,
the
man.
Nintendo eShop.
However, this only
Dude, I'm like
raises
standing
a
here
new
silent. I'm so
The
sorry,
online
y'all.
shops still have a few design
like
flaws that make
slowly
them a bit
falling
more
asleep.
inconvenient than they
But
need
don't
to
get
be,
me wrong, this is
particularly the
amazing,
verification systems.
but I got no
Plus,
sleep
I've noticed that
last
Nintendo
night.
has been going a bit ham with the online subscriptions. Now, I'm not necessarily against paying an annual fee for online features. It is a service after all.
Yeah.
But now Pokemon Home requires a subscription, and it's not quite overboard
I heard about
yet.
that one.
The pricing for these services is okay, but it's getting a little worrisome.
And therein lies the problem. They'll force you to be online and then not put their best foot forward to make sure you can enjoy the experience. There are so many great online communities just waiting to get tapped into, and Nintendo has no idea how to work with them. When did console gaming get so exhausting?
Apparently when Nintendo began.
If you've been creating content for YouTube for, I don't know, like 10,
Yoshi's adorable.
5, 2 years, then you're probably familiar with that.
Uploading
Jeez.
any kind of content involving an existing IP is pretty much impossible to do without upsetting some copyright holder every now and then. And for a while, Nintendo was one of the biggest crybabies. They were absolutely ravenous when it came to
Jeez,
takedowns
yeah.
back in the day. And even though they relaxed a little in recent times, people still live in fear of Nintendo's laser-guided takedowns. Though, to be fair, some people had it coming. But that doesn't excuse taking a dump on the fans who do these things
what?
out of love for the company.
Not
Because it's
Mexico.
not like people making videos about your games can easily be a form of free
Oh, boy.
promotion or anything. Now, Nintendo has definitely turned down the heat these days, but
That
the
is
Nintendo
true.
Creators
I
Program
was
requires you
finally
to
able
share
to
a portion
upload
of your
Luigi's
ad
Mansion.
revenue with them. So it's not 100%
So
perfect.
they haven't
Of
killed
course,
me yet.
YouTubers
Probably
get
'cause
off
I have
easy
a
compared
job
to
I
the
did,
fan
but-
games.
Just about every Nintendo fan game
you're dead.
developer lives in constant anxiety that one day they'll be the next one to receive the dreaded cease and desist. We've seen a
Jeez.
ridiculous number of incredibly interesting looking games be yanked off the internet by them,
I'll
usually
check that
before
out,
the
but
game can even
maybe.
come out.
Ocarina of Time 2D, please face wall. Pokemon Fusion Generation, please face wall. Pokemon Essentials, please face wall.
Holy crap, we still
Mario
got a while to
64
go. We got
HD,
10
please
minutes.
face wall.
Jeez.
Metroid to remake number I lost count, please face wall.
Oh boy.
Shadows
That's a
of
lot
Light,
games.
please face
Oh
wall.
boy.
Star Fox animated series. Oh fuck no, we ain't having no furry degenerates. I'll do it myself.
The worst part about all of this is that other game publishers have adapted to the times when it comes to fan creations. Namco commissioned a fan artist to promote Tales of Berseria. Capcom promoted a Mega Man fan game. And Sega brought on fan developers to create Sonic Mania, which quickly became one of Sonic's most beloved games.
Meanwhile,
because
Nintendo
they did a better
actively
job than
refuses
anybody
to
else who
adapt to the
creates those
times.
things.
It's a real shame because when they do try a modern trend, they do create some good things.
I
All the
mean,
great
yeah,
and
that's what
mostly
happens.
free DLC
So y'all
and
join the
updates
live
for
stream,
Hyrule
because I'm gonna be
Warriors.
honest with
Heck,
y'all, I don't know
Splatoon
how
is
many of y'all are
technically
enjoying this.
Nintendo's online shooter. They can succeed, so it makes it a little more annoying when they blunder.
On the flip side, though, Cadence of Hyrule is a small step in the right direction regarding
That
fan
is
support.
true.
Not to
When I
mention
saw that, I
Sans
didn't
and
know what it
Cuphead
was.
appearing in Smash
Sans
Bros.
was great.
Hopefully that's a sign of better things
Cuphead
to
was a
come,
good one.
but I'm not holding my breath.
Dishonorable mentions.
Shortages of Wii, classics, and amiibos. Technically, a shortage is a good problem.
Shortage of
sometimes, but it does raise
amiibos. Oh
suspicions.
god,
New
I
Play
heard about that
Control,
one.
trying to mix the old school GameCube
That was
controls with the
bad.
newer Wii Remote controls is
That
gonna get
literally
confusing
threw
fast.
their like
Not saving
market
Rare.
off
They knew
the
not the
airwaves.
terrors they allowed with their ignorance. They knew not.
Accidentally banning Peach players in Smash Brothers. They did apologize for this one, but it's kind of scary how using a certain move can get you banned for an entire day.
Who are you?
For pests.
And before anyone forgets, Nintendo has also been severely neglecting their Eastern marketing for almost 3
Who are
decades
you?
now.
Sure, Bolting Shaman, because you asked so nicely, I'd be glad to let you in. Yeah, it's really great. How'd you even get in?
Oh, your window's open. Anyways, regions down in Southeast
That'd
Asia
really
and the
be
Middle
how it'd be,
East have
though.
yet to receive any concrete marketing service from Nintendo outside of imported products. We never properly obtain any range of Nintendo games from consoles like N64, GameCube, and Wii U within the internal market. And the ones we do get nowadays from Switch are
There's
usually
a
stamped at
My Hero
prices
Academy
so
game?
high it's tricky to negotiate. Sony and Microsoft have no qualms putting their games on every shelf in these regions. So what's holding Nintendo up? Even Steam has marketing servers here. There's pretty much no reason to buy indie
no
titles
breathing
on Switch
oxygen
when you
game.
can get them dramatically cheaper the other way around. It's
Because of
ironic
those
that
fucking-
Nintendo's establishment
But yeah,
traces
he
all the
got
way
a
back
point.
to
I
Singapore,
have heard
but its
about how
region,
there's been a
including
few
Malaysia,
issues with
Indonesia, and more,
Eastern
never really got the
apparently
recognition it
with
deserves as a
Nintendo,
recipient
and I really
for
just
Nintendo's
shrugged it
success.
off because, well,
It's
I
tough
never really
being a
figured it
fan
out.
when you're living in a country where practically no one plays Nintendo games. Now,
honestly, I
granted,
still
Nintendo
don't.
is slowly owning up to it, given that they're letting in more publicity for their products around here.
Nice.
But still, so many of us were left out on so many great Nintendo games, to the point that the minority who caught on, such as myself, struggled to find a local community to unite with. Adding on to that, we've yet to get an adequate marketing server for eShop, and so long as even that's not out
Really?
yet, this deserves to remain a concern.
Are you sure they're not exaggerating? I mean, Nintendo can't be that negligent. I mean, pretty sure you got Pokemon in your country, right?
The games, or the anime, toys, and everything else. I rest my case.
He's up the window again. I missed it.
Most of the fails we've covered on
Ooh,
this
what
list
did you
so
send?
far
I
have
get
consisted
message
of relatively
restricted.
recent blunders
Let's
from
check it out
Nintendo,
later.
and some of them have thankfully led to Nintendo learning from their mistakes. However,
Some.
in order to find their greatest folly, we must journey far into the past, nearly 30
back.
years ago.
Ooh.
Is this an obvious number one? Nintendo wanted to create an add-on for the Super Nintendo that would allow it to play games from the far more powerful CDs. For reference, an SNES cartridge could hold about 4 megabytes. A CD could hold around 700. So, to make this a reality, Nintendo struck a deal with Sony and would call it
Ooh, boy.
the Nintendo PlayStation.
Oh no,
I
you
would
didn't.
pay money to see that alternate timeline.
Fast forward to 1991 at the Consumer Electronics Show, where Sony had already told the world that they were working with Nintendo. At their conference, Nintendo was expected to reveal the result of their collaboration with Sony to the gaming
Collaborate and
public.
listen.
Instead, they revealed that they were canceling their deal with Sony and that the add-on was being developed by Philips.
As for why this happened, it's a bit complex.
What?
To try and summarize while still getting all the nuances, Nintendo didn't like that Sony had the ability to
One
make and
simple
sell
mistake makes
games
an
without
enemy.
buying
True,
them from the
but what
former.
the heck
there
did
are
you
also
do?
some indications within the contract that Sony intended to eventually assimilate Nintendo, and Sony would also gain the rights to properties such as Mario and Zelda. So rather than try and renegotiate the nature of the deal with Sony, Nintendo decided to ruthlessly crush them. They straight up went behind their backs, struck a deal with Philips instead, and basically took all the ideas and assets for the shiny new console and left Sony out to dry, all the while publicly humiliating them in front of the entire world.
Wow!
Jeez.
Move, Nintendo.
That was.
Sony now had nothing but an unfinished console. But instead of wallowing in their own self-pity, Sony tightened up their bootstraps and got to work. They took the concepts and the ideas that they got from working with Nintendo and eventually developed their own CD-based console. This would eventually become the Sony PlayStation.
And what did Nintendo have to show for stabbing Sony in the back?
It came back.
Gee, it sure is boring around here.
I hope she made lots of spaghetti.
I wonder what's for dinner.
When you pinch Wendy's pennies, they pinch back.
Or else you will die.
All toasters toast toast.
After you've scrubbed all the
PlayStation did way
floors in
better.
Hyrule, then we can talk about
PlayStation's way better. Sony.
Because of Nintendo's short-sightedness, one of the most powerful and lucrative names in the game industry was born, and bringing with it some of the most popular franchises. And because of Sony's less strict policies, beefier hardware, older demographic, and space-friendly CD
I gotta
formats,
admit, if this is
seeming
actually
more
what
appealing
happened,
to third
then
parties,
so
the PlayStation
Nintendo
absolutely
deserved that.
crushed the N64. Meanwhile, the Philips CDI would go down in history as one of the worst consoles ever created.
Well, that didn't work.
Now, don't get us wrong, the PlayStation itself is amazing. After all,
boy.
it's home to some of our favorite games of all time. The fail here is that Nintendo ended up creating its greatest rival after Sega had shot themselves in the foot multiple times. Although, when you really think about it, this astronomical blunder might have ended up benefiting the gaming industry in the long run.
True.
Nintendo's cutthroat ruthlessness in their early life inadvertently created competition for themselves, causing both these companies to make greater strides to win fans. Not only did Sony thrive from this, but it also gave Microsoft the incentive to enter the industry too. Nintendo was no longer the dominant player in the game, and at the time, that was a good thing.
It truly says a lot when, in the end, Nintendo's greatest failure ended up being one of the most wonderful things to ever happen to the gaming industry.
Jeez.
This countdown ended on a good note.
I'm the Fire Joker.
And I'm the Green
Where's
And I
Zero
want to
One?
thank everyone watching for...
What do you got now? What do you got now?
Warcraft 3 Reforged. What?
No. I'm not letting you take this one.
Oh, for the love of...
What?
I just did that list! Blizzard, you couldn't have screwed this up earlier in the year? You know, do me a little bit of a favor? Come on!
You're not gonna redo that list, are you?
Totally.
No.
Do it.
I'm not gonna
Do
redo
it.
an entire countdown.
Do
Just
it.
add another thing to
Do
the
it.
honorable mentions. It's not fair
Do
on the
it.
fans. It's not fair on the editors. Still, with
Do
the
it.
way these companies keep screwing up,
Do it.
almost feels like I ended these fails lists too early.
Seriously? There's still plenty of companies left. THQ, Atari, Bandai Namco, Tecmo
Rare.
Koei, all of them have done stupid things.
Rare.
Well, yeah, of course, but not enough for a top 10 that still manages to keep interesting.
Fair point. I mean, it's not like you can make a yearly countdown of fails across all companies. Anyway, this is fun. Thanks, Joker.
Joker.
I mean, it's not like you can make a yearly countdown of fails across all companies. A yearly countdown of fails across all companies. Fails across all companies. Fails across all companies.
Yes.
Fails across.
Yes.
Cut!
There it is. There it is. Alright. Oh, we got a little left.
Hey everyone, this is Josh. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share the video around.
Alright.
Please check out my other social media like my Twitter, Twitch,
So I
and
hope you all
Tumblr.
enjoyed
And
the
consider
live
checking below the
stream.
video and donating to my Patreon
I know this was
stream
not an
links for my merchandise
really
or
interesting
becoming
one,
a
and I'm
YouTube
very
member
sorry
and
for
get
that.
Awards like this.
Um,
Shoutouts come from Luigi EXE, Poor Man, Misra D Fox.
Here, I'm gonna pause this actually. So yeah, you guys, I do want to thank y'all for joining in on this live stream. I know it is definitely a little late, and so I'm surprised this actually did a little better than most live streams that happened. And oh, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, and just here we're gonna go through the list and we're gonna say hello to everybody who joined because I always love doing this. I want to thank Mario Bros 2019, Tinny Circle 8727. I'm gonna say your other name because I cannot do this. Dark Here Brian 99. Oh boy, here we go. Here's where I messed the name up. Anetta Jackson and Soul Hunter. That's a nice one. We made a trailer, nice. But yeah, I want to thank you all for joining in. And really just thank you all for being here, because I really did not expect anybody to come on and watch this. So yeah, you guys, without further ado, I want to thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe, and I want to see you in the next video. And we always have this weird moment where I gotta just,